Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back into the video day, and today we're going to be recapping Houston Rockets Media Day. Rockets basketball is back. Obviously, we didn't see the players playing today, but we got to see, pictures taken, all of the familiar faces back again and together with each other, and we got to hear from every single player in this organization outside the two-way contract guys. And we got to start off by hearing from Rafael Stone, the GM, and of course head coach Ime Udoka. That's how this started. And when I recap Media Day, obviously you guys know, you see the pictures taken. You're gonna see that on Rocket social media. They're gonna. I'm sure there were a bunch of other interviews that are others. Maybe 710. Or 690 did some interviews probably. I'm sure there were some other interviews done. But what I'm basically recapping is what I saw from the interviews we saw. And when I mean what we saw was the Rockets live stream. The Rockets do a YouTube and I think probably Instagram too does they do a live stream on there every year. And we got to hear from every single player on the roster, including head coach Ime Udoka and Rafael Stone. I'm going to recap what we got to hear from all 14 players and Ime and Stone. Not everything they said, but the key points of what they said. And this is in order of how the media day went down, who we saw first. Obviously, it started off with Stone and Udoka, then it went off to the players, and this is in order of how it went down, starting off with Fred VanVleet and ending with Reed Sheppard. So, yeah, let's get into it. So, starting off with Udoka and Stone. Now, I want to say, the first thing that Rafael Stone started to talk about was Dikembe Mutombo. The NBA and the Houston Rockets lost an NBA great, not just a great for what he did on the basketball court, being a defensive and rebound machine. There's no one. There's only one player in the NBA today that you look at and say, they're kind of like Dikembe Mutombo, and you could kind of see a little bit of Dikembe Mutombo in them. And to me, that's Rudy Gobert. I mean, I think some people would maybe say Clint Capella, and it makes it even more fit that Clint Capella was a Rocket. I could see a little bit of Mutombo and Clint Capella as well. But I think Capella and Gobert are the only two guys in this league, if you ask me, that are really like Gobert. That I really like Mutombo, and I don't really see either one of those guys being close to him. I mean, we're talking about a 4-time defensive player of the year, a Hall of Famer, someone who was a 2-time rebound champ, was insane. He was like a 3 or 4-time block champ as well. Gobert and Capella, if you ask me, on the rebounding and blocking end, defensive end, or special players, but Mutombo was one of a kind, and also, not just a one-of-a-kind of a player, but one-of-a-kind of a person. And I already did a video talking about his passing. It's not often I talk about former NFL, NBA, or MLB players passing, because it's just something. It's something weird to talk about for me on my channel. But this I felt like I had to talk to for the impact. He had on my life, just from the one moment I got to share with him, and the reason he died, brain cancer for starters, how that's impacted my family, and to end it off with what kind of freaking basketball player this guy was. He was insane. So it felt like I had to talk about that, and I did, and I'll put that up at the end of this video so you guys can go watch that out, or if you don't want to wait until the end, that's literally my last video that was done. But I loved how Stone brought that up, was the first thing. Tillman Fertitta addressed it as well. Stone was talking about how special Mutombo was to him, and it was the first time I kind of saw Rafael Stone like that. I've met Stone twice. or maybe 2 or 3 times actually, and I've never seen his eyes. It never. I mean, he just looked. He told the media and everybody watching that he was having a really tough time with it. But man, you could really see it too. But I had to start off by saying that because that's how they started it off. But anyways, getting into basketball now. So here are some things that Ime and Stone talked about outside of Mutombo. Ime was talking about some of the great things they did last year. They were really good with pace, offensive rebounding, and he was talking about how good they were at those two things at the end of the season. And he said the shooting was better. Now that to me sounds like he's ready for the team shooting to improve and be better. I think we all knew this was something he wanted to happen. For starters, the fact that he, brought back or they brought back Aaron Holiday, they drafted Reed Sheppard, but also the fact that at the end of the season he did say defense and 3-point shooting was something he really wanted the team to improve on. But to me, what it sounded like was he was not satisfied with the shooting at the end of last season. Obviously, with what he said, he thinks it's better. But I think Ime is ready for the 3-point shooting to take the next step. I think we all are, though. All right. Now, also, Ime gave us an update on injuries. This is something we learned, or I guess everybody learned. If you didn't know, giving an injury update on Alperen Sengun, he's fine. He said that if the Rockets made the playoffs last year, if they would have continued the run that they made at the end of the year, that Sengun would have been available to play in the play-in or the playoffs. And so, that's something I had a idea that would happen if the Rockets made it that far, but obviously they never did, so it was kind of an afterthought. But so Sengun was, was going to be back if they made it that far. And then getting to Adams and Tari, we got to hear from both of those guys. Give a little spoiler. Adams said he's not on a minute restriction, and Udoka said both, Tari and Adams are fine, but they're going to take it a little bit slower with those two guys. But Sengun is good to go. All right, Stone said that they are open to filling up the open roster spot because of A.J. Griffin's buyout, but it's not likely, but he likes the flexibility of the roster spot being open. And, honestly, I don't really see the point of bringing anyone in. I mean, Stone talked about this, but he says there's guys that aren't going to get minutes right now on this team that should be. I don't really see the point of adding in someone else. But what he was talking about adding someone in, I mean, it didn't sound like they're going to do that. I mean, to me, what it sounded like is that he's really excited for the flexibility of the roster spot. With the trade deadline and the advantage of having that roster spot if anyone were to get cut in the around the league. And so I don't expect the Rockets to open up their roster spot. I actually wouldn't be surprised if we don't see that roster spot get opened if we don't see that roster spot get filled until the trade deadline. Because this rotation is so deep right now that the way I look at it is you got 14 guys on the roster that all could be playing for this team. And most likely, you're not going to run a 11 or 12-man rotation. If everybody is healthy for this Rockets team, there's going to be 10 guys who probably play in the rotation. Maybe you might see Ime push to 11 a night. On the, it would. I think it's unlikely, but I think it is possible that Ime could go. Sometimes explore 6 guys off the bench instead of 5. But I think most nights you'll see 5. So that means 10 guys to play in a night. Those are 4 guys to not play. I mean, off the bench you have Amin Thompson, Cam Whitmore, Steven Adams, Tari Eason, who are the 4 guys who should be coming off the bench, and then you got 5 other guys who are capable of getting minutes as well, and Reed Sheppard, Jeff Green, Aaron Holiday, Jock Landale, Jayshawn Tate. So yeah, it's a pretty locked rotation. I mean, so I don't really see the point of them filling up that roster spot. Now they asked Stone about the possibility of the extensions with Jalen Green or Alp. He would not answer on that, and I like that. I mean, I didn't expect him to answer on that. He's not going to talk about contracts, but the same questions were asked to Jalen Green and Sengun. I will get into that in just a minute when I get to those different players, because both of them did answer on the contract extension, and both had different answers. All right, that was it for Stone and Udoka. Now I want to get to Fred VanVleet, because he was the first player to enter into the questioning, and so something he said was he's very confident in this team and very confident in Jalen Green. Says there are no excuses for this team with experience after last year's success. Only player that can make an excuse is Reed Sheppard. So I don't remember the exact question was asked by him, but I remember it was something about the team with experience, and basically he said that they can't use that. The young guys can't use that as an excuse anymore, because they got the experience. They learned how to win ball games last year, and they did a good job. And last year's team did a really good job. The only guy that really can have that experience excuse is Reed Sheppard, is basically what he said. All right. And then another thing they asked about, him being a mentor to Reed Sheppard. He said that he's excited. Fred VanVleet is excited to take Reed under his wing and is excited to speed up his development process. I want to get into Steven Adams. I mean, Steven Adams I know Steven Adams is a player. I know what he's capable of a player. Obviously, it's not like I didn't know that, but I haven't really ever seen him talk. Like, I've seen him talk, but I've never really seen him talk for a long time in an interview. Like one of my only interview remembering of him before this was actually one where Russell Westbrook would not let him talk. If you guys remember in OKC when the guy was trying to ask Steven Adams a question and Russ was answering it, wouldn't let Steven answer it. I mean, so this is the first time I've really, heard Steven Adams talk this much, and he's such a laid back dude. I mean, he's just going with it. But yeah, I didn't get a lot out of him, but there was something that I did want to talk about that I thought was, worthy enough to talk about was, he was asked about being back with Dillon Brooks. Obviously, those two guys played with each other in Memphis, and he said he's happy to be back with Dillon Brooks. Said that they had really good chemistry in Memphis. They had a good relationship on and off the court, and he's a really good dude. He said that obviously you want to have a good relationship with a teammate on the court, but if you have that off the court as well, it just makes it even better, which of course is true. And then the only other thing I really took from Adams' interview is, like he said, he's not on a minute restriction, but I already talked about that. So, I mean, he's new. I mean, they asked him a lot of questions. He didn't know a lot of we got to figure things out. I mean, he was with the team at the end of the year, but wasn't healthy, was doing his rehab, talked about that, talked about, the process and not, not playing for these last couple of years and what that's done to him mentally. But he's still figuring things out as a Rocket, and he talked about this. He talked a little bit about the city. I remember talked about the city of Houston, likes the city of Houston. He said that he just went to Memorial Park a couple days ago, and he said that's somewhere he's going to be back soon. He said he likes Memorial Park. I like Memorial Park too. Not in this hot weather, though. I'll tell you that. All right, next we saw Alperen Sengun have a couple key things that he said. He was asked what he added this year to his game. He didn't really say he added anything, but he said he kept working on things. Last year we saw him start to, add in the Dirk shot, the Dirk fadeaway shot. And he said he continued to work on the Dirk shot, and he's also working on the Nikola Jokic one-leg shot. So I think he said he thinks he's improved on those two shots. So maybe we'll see that this year. He was also asked about the Houston Texans. Amin Thompson and Alperen Sengun were at the Houston Texans game against the Jacksonville Jaguars in a Texans W. Let's go Texans. Yesterday, and he was asked about that. I don't know if it was him and Amin, but he got to fire the cannon, which obviously is awesome. And he said that this was his second game, but his first, because I think they asked him if it was his first Texans game. But he said it was his second game, but his first game understanding the game, he said he had a great time. So obviously, loved to see the two of the three Houston sports, mixing in with each other with the Rockets and Texans. Glad to have both of those back at the same time, although we are losing the Astros pretty soon as their season is ending, or getting into the playoffs and then ending. All right, something else he said outside of Texans and working on adding stuff to this game. He said he believes they will make the playoffs, because the playoffs is a big thing that was talked about. Started with Udoka, players, everything you heard with goals this year is playoffs. Last year, you saw a couple players say they wanted to go to the playoffs. Some players said they wanted to get to the play-in. And I think that there were a couple players that said they wanted to get a 500 record, which those are really nice goals for a team that was 15th in the Western Conference the year before. And they got pretty damn close to those goals. I mean, they had a record of 500. They didn't make the play-in or the playoffs, but they had a 19-win improvement. It was a great season. Let's see if they can get to the goals that they're setting this year, because it's specifically just one thing, and that's the playoffs. And that's what Sengun said. He said he believes they will make the playoffs, said that they have a talented team and good players, and there's no excuse not to make the playoffs. Also, he said that they have been – this is about the extension. He was asked about the extension. He says they have been talking about the extension. He says they will make it work, but he doesn't know when that's going to be. Now let's talk about Dillon Brooks. There's only really one thing that Dillon Brooks said that that I noted, and he said that, again, playoffs. He says the playoffs is the goal. He wants these young guys to experience the playoffs. Says it's one of a kind being in a 7-game series with the team. Next, we saw Jabari Smith Jr. I only really had one thing from Jabari Smith Jr. as well. He says he wants to drive more and he wants to get to the free throw line more, and has worked on his ball handling this summer with the coaches. So, if Jabari Smith Jr. can get to the free throw line more by driving more, he's dangerous. Jabari adds in free throws. He's more of a scoring threat. So, yeah, that'd be awesome from Jabari this year. Next, let's get to Jalen Green, because we got 3 different notes from Jalen Green. He was asked how fatherhood has changed him, and he said that basically just said he's got to be an example for his daughter, and it's changed him a lot. And look, I don't know how that will impact him as a basketball player, but if he's going to be an example, for his daughter, I mean, if that means, maybe that's going to turn him into a better leader as a player for this team. I hope so. But that was asked of Jalen. He also asked, what's the goal? Like a lot of players were asked. And he said, nothing less than playoffs. And the mindset is playoffs. And he talks about it every day with the players. Now, the last thing was, of course, the contract extension. Jalen's answer was different from Sengun. Jalen said that the contract extension is not the focus right now. Obviously, I want to be here, but the main focus is the season and playoffs. I'm not going to lie. As a player, looking like comparing his players, I love Sengun. I probably, a bigger fan of Sengun than Jalen Green, but I just gained so much more respect than I already had for Jalen Green giving that answer. What he told us was he wants to be a Houston Rocket, but he has a goal right now that this team's going to be good this season and they're going to make the playoffs. And I'm not saying Sengun doesn't want that, because, of course, he gave a similar answer saying that this team has no excuse not giving the playoffs. But Jalen doesn't want to talk about the contract extension. He wants to get to the playoffs. And I know Sengun wants the same, but I love how Jalen pushed that aside. All right, next we saw Jae'Sean Tate. I have to give Jae'Sean Tate some love. He's the longest tenured Houston Rocket. If you look outside of Jeff Green, who was back, in Houston, in 2019-20 season, but then was gone for years. He's the longest tenured Rocket. And even though he's not going to get a lot of minutes this year, he still brings experience and he brings toughness. I think if you put him and Steven Adams on the court together, that'd be really nice because both of those guys are really tough defensively. Wouldn't hate to see those two guys on the floor together this year if Jae'Sean Tate gets some minutes. But he said the same thing. Playoffs. They're ready to take the next step in the playoffs, and being here for 5 years, he'd love that. What I would absolutely hate is that if this team makes the playoffs this year and the Rockets trade him right before it happens, that would suck. Just because of the fact that, he's been the guy that's been here throughout all the bad times and never is asked to leave or, go to a contender, because I feel like Jae'Sean is a guy who could really help out a contender with what he does defensively and the effort he brings. But instead, he's just stayed loyal to Houston for the last 5 years. So love to see it. I'm excited for Jae'Sean Tate to potentially have a good year, although it should be hard just because it's such a tight rotation right now. All right, next, Aaron Holiday, who was re-signed this year. It's Aaron Holiday's birthday. How about this? This is really cool. The media is saying happy birthday to Aaron Holiday. You could kind of hear what was happening in between players, coming in to, do the media. And basically the woman who was, running the thing asked them, would y'all mind singing happy birthday? And a couple of different of the media guys was, they were like, they were saying, yeah, let's do it. And there was, I don't know if a lot of people, there's this guy named Jackson Gatlin who, does Locked On Rockets. And he does a great job interviewing all the players as well, being in the media world. And I loved his answer. He said, he said, I think he said, I'm not going to sing if I'm the only. He said he was basically saying he wasn't going to do it alone. But you could hear him singing as well, and you could tell how much it touched Aaron Holiday. But yeah, and there were some things that he said that I noted as well. Asked why he wanted to come back to Houston. Loves the city of Houston. His family's comfortable here, and the organization and teammates treat him well. And again, here we go again with this. He asked what they got to do to make the playoffs because that's the goal, and he said they got to stay disciplined. Glad to have Aaron Holiday back in Houston. Happy birthday as well. Next, Tari Eason. I think out of all the players, Tari Eason is the most I noted of. Sengun, I got a lot of notes out of. Jalen Green as well. Obviously, Ime Udoka and Rafael Stone. But Tari Eason, I thought there was a lot that you could talk about from what he said. Starting off with how he feels like he has improved on his shooting and says the game has slowed down when you miss a lot of time. You pick up on more things when you get back on the court. Now, he also said there's a lot of positive energy around the team, getting him and Steve back and adding in Reed Shepherd. Now, back to Jackson, Gatlin. He asked this to Tari Eason. Tari Eason's a big movie guy, loves movies. And another funny Jackson Gatlin moment, he asked what was his favorite movie since we last saw Tari last season that he had watched. And he kind of stumbled Tari. Tari really didn't know what to say. Funny enough, he responded back by saying there were a lot of bad movies, which I can agree with Tari there. There have been a lot of bad movies. There have been some good movies as well in the year 2024. But Tari really didn't have an answer at all. Instead, he asked Jackson what his favorite movie was. And neither could find an answer of what movie. They both stumbled each other. It was a funny moment. Now, also, Tari was asked if the Rockets could have the best bench unit in the NBA, and of course he said yeah, and I agree with that as well, just because the fact the Rockets had the 5th best bench unit in the NBA last year. Now they add in Steven Adams. You got a healthy Tari Eason. Also you drafted Reed Shepherd. You really didn't lose anybody, to be honest. I mean, Aaron Holiday's back. Jeff Green's still on the team. Jock Landale is still on the team. Jae'Sean Tate's still on the team. The only guy that's really gone is Reggie Bullock, and he didn't really do a lot. But And Jock is more healthy because his body to start off the season last year was just like, he just wasn't all there, and it wasn't really like that. It wasn't really at his best until January, February. So if they had the fifth best bench unit last year, only lose Reggie Bullock, add in Steven Adams, have a healthy Tari Eason and Jock Landale, add in Reed Shepherd, the Rockets can easily be a top 3, if not better, bench unit in the NBA this year. Now let's get into Cam Whitmore. I only really had one thing for him. He was asked how he's changed in the last year compared to last year's media day as a rookie. He said he's changed as a person and a player. He got stronger, faster, and his IQ has got better. All right, now, Jeff Green. There was only one thing I noted for Jeff Green, and it actually has to do with the passing of Dikembe Mutombo. If you did not know, Jeff Green went to Georgetown, played college there. That is where Dikembe played. So him and Dikembe had a close relationship, and here's what he said. Dikembe Mutombo impacted him since day one, impacted him since day one being at Georgetown. He gave him pointers since his rookie year on how to become a pro. I owe him a lot. I owe a lot to him. He touched a lot of people in this world with his joy and his energy. We lost a good one. I'm happy he's in a better place and is no longer in pain, but it sucks to lose someone who was so great and giving to this world. Unbelievable by Jeff Green there. I mean, I'm not going to say I was shocked, but because he's just a true professional, but out of pocket. I mean, I'm sure he knew that question was coming about Dikembe, but there's no guarantee. So to have that response ready to go like that, I mean, that was a strong answer right there to describe Dikembe and his relationship with Dikembe. I love that, and I even talked about it on the video I made, about Dikembe Mutombo's passing. So, just love that answer by Jeff Green. Now let's get into Jock Landale. He was another guy. I talk about Tari Eason. I talk about Alperen Sengun with some of the answers they were giving, that those were two guys that really had a lot to note about with what what they said. Jock Landale's a guy that's with them. He had a lot to say and a lot for me to note. Jock was asked what it was like to have two Australians on the team now, and he said it's great. Also mentioned having another Aussie teammate in Jack McVeigh, who was recently signed as a two-way contract guy. He was saying that Steven Adams is not a real Australian. He said did not believe that. And then he said Jack McVeigh is the first ever Australian teammate he's ever had. So Jock's on the strong train that Steven Adams is not a real Australian. So that's interesting. All right. But anyways, after that, Jock says he feels back to himself and feels like the Olympics really helped with that, and he feels miles better than he did last year. Now, he's asked at what point last year was he really fully comfortable. He said it wasn't about being comfortable. It was about his body not being able to take it. But he started feeling good around the new year in January. I think we all could sort of tell, like at the middle of January, end of January, beginning of February is when, to me, he started to really look like, okay, this is the guy that I thought we signed. This is the guy who I thought was coming to Houston and not the guy who's been playing for the last couple months. So, I saw that too in the area of January and February. He started looking really good and didn't look like the same player that we saw from October through January or through December. All right. Another thing that he said was the Rockets are one of the strongest teams in the NBA at the center position, because he was asked about the center group of him, Steve-O, and Sengun, and he started praising both Alperen and Steven Adams. He talked about Sengun's growth, and he talked about Adams' physicality, calling him a grizzly bear. Funny enough, that's the last team he played on, the Grizzlies. All right, and then Amen Thompson was one of the final players to talk to the media. He said he's been working on all aspects of the game, shooting, ball handling, and being a leader. If Amen can work on that shooting and get that improved, he's a dangerous player. He also said he has made strides with his shooting, working with the coaching staff. Credited Ben Sullivan, who's an unbelievable coach and an unbelievable coach, and helping players improve on their 3-point shot. So if he's working with Ben Sullivan a lot, I think I think Amen's in good hands. And yeah, so if Amen can start shooting the ball well, he's going to be a dangerous player. And also, Reed Shepherd, I didn't really have a lot of notes for him, but, was excited to see Reed. He had a mustache, was not something we really saw in the summer league or the draft. It's kind of a new look for us Rockets fans. But anyways, he looks like he's ready to learn. He looks like he's ready to get on the basketball court and, get on the floor with these guys. So let me know your thoughts on Rockets Media Day in the comment section, and peace out. Go Rockets.